Second Samuel chapter 24. Okay, everybody there? We're getting there? The anger of Adonai blazed up against Israel. So he moved David to act against them by saying, "Go take ye census of Israel and Judah." The king said to Joab, the commander of the army who was with him, "Go throughout all the tribes of Israel, from Dan to Beersheba, and take a census of the population, so that I can know how many people there are." Joab said to the king, "May Adonai your God add to the people 100-fold, no matter how many there are, and may the eyes of the Lord the king see it. But why does my lord the king take pleasure in doing this?" Now the way this is worded is a little vague and ambiguous, a little confusing the way this translation. However, the king's word prevailed against Joab and the army officers. So Joab and the army officers went out from the king's presence to take a census of the people of Israel. They crossed the Jordan and pitched camp at Aroer, to the south of the city, in the Valley of God. Went to, interesting now, Gad is pronounced God, not Gad. But find out who the seer of David is, what his name is. Went on to Yashur, came to Gilead, and continued to the land of Tahtim Hoshdi, excuse me. Then they arrived in Dan Yanan, went around to Zion, and came to the stronghold of Zor. They went on to the cities of the Hivites and the Canaanites, and finished in the south of Yehuda at Beersheba. The city of Beersheba was the southernmost border of Judah's territory. From below that, it was all Simeon's. When they were done going through all the land, they came back to Jerusalem, and it had taken them 9 months and 20 days. Joab reported the results of the census to the king. There were in Israel 800,000 valiant men who could handle a sword, while the men of Judah numbered 500,000. So there was a total of 1,300,000 men able to go to war. We can only presume, it didn't say here, that they were 20 years of age and older.
Yeah, that's what the census was supposed to be.
Able-bodied.
More than twice when they came out of Israel, or when they came out of Egypt.
Oh, yeah.
There was 600,000 then, basically.
There were 603,000. Yeah, more than double that now.
Yeah.
But after he had taken the census, David was conscience-stricken. David said to Adonai, "I have greatly sinned in what I have done. But now, Adonai, please put aside your servant's sin, for I have done a very foolish thing." When David got up in the morning, this word of Adonai came to the prophet God, David's seer. Remember I said they were startled?
Interesting.
Kind of interesting connection. "Go and say to David that this is what Adonai, or Yahweh, says. I am giving you a choice of 3 punishments. Choose one of them, and I will execute it against you." God came to David and told him and said, "Do you want 7 years of famine in your land? Or do you want to flee before your enemies for 3 months while they pursue you? Or do you want 3 days of plague in your land? Think about it and tell me what to answer the one who sent me." That would be Yahweh. David said to God, "This is very, very hard for me. Let us fall into the hand of Adonai, because his mercies are great, rather than have me fall into the hand of man." So Adonai sent a plague on Israel from that morning until the end of the specified days. Now remember, this was 3 days and 3 nights.
Yeah.
This plague raged.
Yeah.
Another significant number. 70,000, precisely 70,000 of the people died between Dan and Beersheba. And it was the whole length of Israel. And remember that Dan was all the way up at the northwestern corner of the nation of Israel, the land of Palestine, and right next to the border of with Lebanon, which is modern day Lebanon. It was called Tyre and Sidon in those days, Phoenicia. But when the angel stretched out his hand toward Jerusalem to destroy it, Adonai changed his mind about causing such distress and said to the angel destroying the people, "Enough! Now withdraw your hand." The angel of Adonai was at the threshing floor, Aravna the Yerushi. David spoke to Adonai when he saw the angel striking the people. And he said, "Here, I have sinned, I have done wrong. But these sheep, what have they done? Please, let your hand be against me and against my father's family." God came to David that day and said to him, "Go set up an altar to Adonai on the threshing floor of Aravna the Yerushi." David went up and did what God had said, as Adonai had ordered. Aravna looked out and saw the king and his servants coming toward him. Aravna went out and prostrated himself before the king with his face to the ground. Then Aravna said, "Why has my lord the king come to his servant?" David said, "To buy your threshing floor." Now you got to remember what this threshing floor is going to end up being. It's going to be the site of the temple that Solomon had built. This is going to be this is going to be the altar, the spot where the altar is built for all the sacrifices.
Yeah.
He said, Aravna said to the Lord, to the David, "Let my lord the king take and offer up anything that seems good to him. Here are the oxen for the burnt offering. You can use the threshing sledges and the yokes for the oxen as firewood. All this, O King Aravna, gives to the king." Then Aravna said to the king, "May Adonai your God accept you." But the king said to Aravna, "No, I insist on buying it from you at a price. I refuse to offer to Adonai my God burnt offerings that cost me nothing."
Amen.
So David bought the threshing floor and the oxen for 1 1/4 pounds of silver shekels. How many half shekels would that be?
50.
100 half shekels.
It's kind of parallel to that of whenever
Well, each one of
all
those
of them was
for
trying to
50
buy
an
it,
ounce.
the cave bank color.
That's 50
Showing
pieces,
that.
isn't it?
Yeah, 50 pieces, full shekels.
He insisted that he, instead of being given him that cave, he
That he
wanted
pays
to buy
for
it.
it, yeah.
So it's parallel to that.
Yeah.
So he's insisting that he wants to buy this thing, to give him.
I'm just curious as to, and I haven't done the math, I'm curious to know if there's any tie into this in the cave of Machpelah that
So
Abraham.
Brandon was just saying,
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's
it's
a
kind of a
parallel to
parallel.
that, remember? Because he
Yeah.
insisted to buy it from him.
he insisted on buying it.
yeah.
Now,
Exactly.
why wouldn't he take it? Why wouldn't Abraham and why wouldn't his son David take this land for free, for nothing?
Because they wanted it to be of value. David was doing it for Yah and didn't want to give him just something that was free. He wanted it to cost something, because that was what really shows the Father that we're serious about worshiping Him. And that's what it was. Did you read the last verse?
It says, "Then David built an altar to Adonai there and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. After this, Adonai took pity on the land and lifted the plague from Israel."
70,000 men died because of that disobedience, of not collecting that half shekel of silver as commanded in the Torah. And this was the leadership's problem, but it was the people that suffered. So it's a very serious thing that we walk in obedience to all of the Torah. It's interesting, there's a lot going on Facebook about different teachers teaching that we need to sacrifice a lamb in order to keep Passover, and you need to do it if you're going to really be saved. And it's a teaching that's not biblical.
Right.
Matter of fact, the Torah tells us that we are not to sacrifice the Passover within our gates, but only at the place that He chose to place His name. And we know from studying Samuel and Kings that that place is Jerusalem. He says, "My name will dwell in Jerusalem forever." He says it a number of times. And so we know that we can't do it unless it's actually done at Jerusalem. But not only that, there's another section that talks about that all the blood of all the sacrifices has to be taken to the priest and has to be poured out upon the altar. That you cannot do a sacrifice out in your field, because if you do, it says you'll be cut off. So these people that are striving in their zeal to try to do something for Yah are in fact cutting themselves off because they're not paying attention to the Torah. Then I had another precious lady tell me that, well, Yeshua said to the woman at the well in Samaria in John chapter 4 that there's coming a time